Tonight, caught on camera throwing a road sign onto a busy highway.
Somebody doing this sort of thing could be looking at a criminal charge of mischief, endangering life, or worse if somebody were to be struck and hurt or killed.
Halton police are investigating. Plus,
we have seen the value that video can bring.
A key tool in the fight against gun and gang violence.
Get ready to see more of these. The city is hoping surveillance cameras can help curb a growing gun problem. And love 'em or hate 'em, an e-scooter pilot project is set to launch in Toronto this fall, but there's still some major hurdles ahead. Good evening, I'm Talia Ricci. Police have made an arrest in the incident being called foolish and criminal after video of a young man throwing a traffic sign off an overpass at Winston Churchill Boulevard and QEW Highway in Oakville surfaced online. Luckily, the sign landed on a grassy area which separates the lanes. Investigators say the young person responsible is charged with mischief and common nuisance. Angelina King has more on the video and the reaction.
Look at this dumbass.
The video is short, but it paints the picture. A young man deliberately hurling a road sign off an overpass onto a busy highway below. Fortunately, nobody was hurt, but the behavior extremely dangerous. We've blurred his face because police say he may be under the age of 18.
It's an absolutely foolish thing to do. It's completely dangerous and it's criminal. You know, somebody doing this sort of thing could be looking at a criminal charge of mischief, endangering life, or worse if somebody were to be struck and hurt or killed.
Police say there's construction in the area and the person could have taken a loose sign, but our cameras did notice this pole seems to be missing something. This video got a lot of clicks earlier this year, showing a woman tossing a chair off a high-rise condo balcony. Marcella Zoya turned herself in after it surfaced. She's facing charges of mischief endangering life, mischief damaging property, and common nuisance. Her case is still before the courts.
In both incidents, no injuries were reported, but that's the best case scenario. There are similar cases out there where people ended up getting seriously hurt or even killed. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
The city and the province are hoping more surveillance cameras will help deter gun violence. The plan is to double the number of CCTV cameras throughout Toronto in the next 3 years. The added eyes giving police another tool in their battle against guns and gangs. Lisa Shing has the details.
We're coming for you. We will catch you, and we will bring you to justice.
A message from Premier Doug Ford, backed by a promise of $3 million to double the number of Toronto police security cameras. It comes amidst a spike in shootings in recent weeks. Just yesterday, a man died near the Jane and Weston area. A week ago, a fatal drive-by in Roncesvalles, and a dozen shootings over the August long weekend. Toronto's mayor asked for the funding for more cameras.
The video evidence of their presence in those neighborhoods and the acts they commit there, the acts of violence, are incredibly valuable to the police in bringing those people to justice.
40 new cameras will be installed over 3 years, bringing the total to 74. Police haven't said where the new ones will go, but so far, recent anti-gun strategies have focused police efforts where there have been a high number of shootings. This year, 23 Division saw 33 shootings, 31 Division had 35, and there were 26 in both 12 and 43 Division. There are already many cameras up in downtown Toronto. Some people we spoke with support the plan.
Fairly low-cost alternative to having hired cops on the street.
No different than someone having a cell phone in the right place at the right time.
While that may be so, former Privacy Commissioner Ann Kavukian suggests police encrypt the video that's gathered.
You can get a warrant, be my guest, decrypt the information. So that makes it a win-win. You have privacy and much-needed law enforcement when it's needed.
Others say that money should go towards community resources that look at root causes of gun violence.
There's so many on the ground activists and grassroots organizations that are working with at-risk neighborhoods or areas that are more vulnerable to gun violence that could be using that money to have more sustainable long-term impacts.
Now, several city councillors have already spoken out against using this money towards CCTV cameras, citing studies that say they do deter crime like vehicle theft, but not violent crime, saying they would like to see that money invested in youth programs instead. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
And police have released this surveillance video after a sex assault near Yonge and Gerrard. Toronto police are looking to identify this man. They say on Wednesday, a 16-year-old girl was in the McGill Parkette. She was approached by the man who sexually assaulted her. He then fled the area. The next day, the teen returned to the Parkette and was sexually assaulted again by the same man. Police are asking anyone with information to come forward. In the chaotic aftermath of a fiery crash on the QEW last night, emergency crews initially believed no one had been killed.
This tractor trailer was burning completely, and there's a multiple fire truck putting the fire out, and then this is a chaos here.
A tractor trailer burst into flames after the crash late last night on the QEW in Oakville. It wasn't until crews began to pull apart the wreckage that they discovered a crushed car with a woman's body inside. She's been identified as a 34-year-old from Niagara Falls. 7 other people were taken to a local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. There's no word on what caused the crash. A man wanted in last summer's murder of a well-known Toronto rapper and another man has been arrested in BC. 21-year-old Javante Smart, also known as Smoke Dog, and 28-year-old Ernest Madekwe were gunned down in June 2018 on Queen Street West. Police issued a Canada-wide warrant for the arrest of 23-year-old Abdul Kadir Handul. Earlier this summer, RCMP in British Columbia arrested Handul. He was brought back to Toronto, where he now faces 2 first-degree murder charges. Investigators are still looking for another suspect in the shooting. Jeff Harrington's here with a first look at your forecast. Feeling a little cooler today than we're used to.
Yeah, certainly a fresh start to the day, Talia. Let's take a look at what temperatures were this morning. Toward the east end, Oshawa 12. We actually were even cooler than that in some spots. Kitchener at 10. So much of the same tonight. By the way, we should be 13. So the city of Toronto was bang on that. And tonight, we're going to be bang on average, nowhere near the record, though, of 4 degrees. Looking at our weather makers over the next little bit, honestly, not a whole lot going on. Clear skies tonight. We're going to wake up to brilliant sunshine. Saturday morning, that carries through right to the afternoon. And in about 24 hours from now, clear conditions as well. That's because we've got high pressure anchored into play. So, yeah, that's a weather word, but basically it just means that it's smooth sailing for the next little bit. This story by the numbers then, 13 degrees tonight. Watch out for brisk winds out of the north, so that's going to hold down our temperature. Could be gusting up to 40 kilometers per hour and a high of 24 for Saturday afternoon. Full on sun, but the winds will be a factor again. We'll talk more about that coming up.
Thanks, Jeff. An update on the story we led the show with last night. Police say the 3 women and a baby who were taken to hospital after a major crash at Bay and College are now in stable condition. Investigators say a 54-year-old man was driving an Uber northbound on Bay when he crossed the intersection on College, allegedly disobeying a red traffic signal. The vehicle then struck 2 women walking through the intersection before hitting 2 other vehicles going west on College. While it's not known if the Uber driver was on the job at the time of the collision, Uber says they've removed the man's access to their app and they're working with police. Police say charges are pending. So this has been an especially dangerous week on our streets. In 3 separate incidents, 2 pedestrians were struck by cars and killed. Several others were injured. Now, some are so fed up they are taking matters into their own hands. Chris Glover takes a look at that.
Right here, just as I happened to be riding past, it was May 20th, 2015. I'll never forget that day.
Jessica Speaker almost died at this corner of Bathurst Street when an SUV slammed into her on her bike.
She broke my spine, sustained a traumatic brain injury.
Now she's an advocate with the group Friends and Families for Safe Streets. Among other demands, they want a 30-kilometer-an-hour speed limit in Toronto.
It makes me enraged that our political leaders don't do more to address what is effectively a gigantic public health crisis in this city.
Over on the Danforth, a safety experiment paid for by private citizens and approved by the city.
Can we all agree that we want to have no lives lost on our streets? If we agree on that, then we have to understand that the status quo isn't working.
Their demonstration includes a protected bike lane and pedestrian-only area. Both measures are part of the city's Vision Zero initiative to curb deaths on Toronto streets.
And you call this life-saving infrastructure. Why?
Yes, because we know the research shows that when you're physically separated.
Even as we were interviewing her, outraged people let her have it.
No, I think it's disgusting that they're taking up city streets to put in bike lanes. It's awful.
I don't like it.
Yeah?
Because I work in a bar, right? And people can't park there and you come drink. So that's my opinion. I just don't like it.
So, and you're saying that you're on a bike right now, but you still don't like this effort here.
Not on Danforth.
Conflict is part of change.
But she says the resistance isn't stopping them, especially in a week when 2 pedestrians were killed in 3 separate crashes and several more were injured, and in a year when we've already seen 19 pedestrians die. Plus, the 10-year trend of pedestrian fatalities is bad, hovering at or below 30 people killed 10 years ago, now hovering around 40 pedestrians killed a year. That's despite Vision Zero being approved in 2016. Neighborhoods have long pushed for safer streets. In 2014, people in Leaside put up lawn signs after 7-year-old Georgia Walsh was hit and killed while walking.
How are you doing now? I mean, you look great.
Oh, thanks. Constant back pain. Gee, yeah. You see, I'm a little traumatized, so things like that, it's completely terrifying.
Advocates like Speaker hope their ongoing trauma will help convince others to accept a complete rethink of how Toronto is designed.
So lots of people turned out tonight for the kickoff of this initiative on the Danforth, and I can tell you that it was funded by a Toronto woman who wishes to remain anonymous. She gave $200,000 because she wants to make sure that nobody dies on Toronto streets, and she's motivated to help because just last year her friend's husband died in a collision in Toronto, and she's also helping to support 3 of these demonstrations, this being the first one. 2 others are planned for later this year. One of them will be in North York, the other one in the city's West End. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
E-scooter rentals are a booming business around the world, and now they're coming to Toronto, even though they're technically not allowed on city streets. More on that coming up. After months of historically high water levels, the shoreline hazard warning for Lake Ontario has finally been lifted. The Toronto and Region Conservation Authority says the warning that had been in effect since April 30th has been cancelled. Water levels have now dipped below 75.5 meters. Lake levels are expected to continue to decline into the fall, but the TRCA says issues on the shoreline remain. They're asking people to stay away from areas of the city's shoreline that have been affected by flooding and erosion and obey all trail closure notices. They're fast, they're convenient, and they're becoming hugely popular in cities around the world. And CBC Toronto has learned an e-scooter pilot project is launching here in the weeks ahead, even though regulations still need to get up to speed before residents can use them. City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly has the story.
Grabbing lunch can be a trek for people working far from public transit, so one Toronto company bought an office e-scooter.
It's much easier than having to hop in and out of a car, find parking. It's actually usually even quicker.
Employees can also borrow a shared helmet. Good protection since this scooter can hit a swift speed of 25 kilometers an hour. The company's co-founder says staff are loving it.
It's a lot of fun to use. It's actually the part of the journey is how much fun it is.
It's super convenient for the office. It's easier than I thought.
While e-scooters are growing more popular in Toronto, there's a debate happening over whether or not they should even be allowed in the city. Right now, provincial legislation means e-scooters aren't legal to ride on Ontario roads, only private property. That roadblock led Waterloo to wind down a recent pilot project, while Montreal is just getting started. Hundreds of scooters are now available for rental through an app, and users can drop them off at designated locations.
We ask for all Montrealers to check it out and give us their feedback.
Policymakers at Queen's Park are watching closely, and so are local startup companies.
A lot of regulators, they're evaluating electric scooter. Is it safe? Is it okay? Do people really need it?
Toronto-based Roll has developed a rental app and customized scooter, which has a lower maximum speed for first-time users. Next month, they're launching in BC instead of Ontario.
We have to do a lot on the regulation changes in order to have an electric scooter on the road.
So if e-scooters aren't technically allowed on city streets, you might be wondering how a pilot project could be launching in the Distillery District. Well, there's a loophole because it is technically private property. So this company, Bird Canada, is hoping to roll that out in the next few weeks, which means you could see electronic scooters on the cobblestone streets of this neighborhood pretty soon. And you can be sure that people at Queen's Park are probably paying attention to how that goes. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
It's called Able Sail Toronto, a program that started in the city this summer that aims to make sailing accessible to those with physical disabilities.
It's always been a refuge for me.
I'm Kelda Yoon. On Lake Ontario, coming up, I take you along for a ride and find out how sailing has changed the lives of some of those in the program.
weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Jeff Harrington's back with your extended forecast. How's the week looking?
Really calm weather pattern over the next several days. So because of that, you're going to get my weatherman guarantee that we've got full on sunshine Saturday, Sunday into Monday. Monday we'll switch it up just a bit. So very quiet weather pattern on tap. Temperatures running a few degrees below seasonal. Also some windy conditions in there as well. Looking like our next shot at rain will come Tuesday. So we got up to 23 today. We should be 25 this time of the year, in case you're wondering, but really look, the whole province in the lower 20s. Barrie, 19 for your daytime high. Wanted to chat about the winds because they're going to be a factor this the next little while. Look at this overnight. Pretty close, gusts 40 for the city of Toronto, also out toward the east end and into southwestern Ontario. Waking up on Saturday, still breezy for southwestern Ontario. The winds back off some for the city of Toronto, and the winds will actually shift around to the east by Saturday afternoon. So an east wind is just a breeze coming off Lake Ontario, and that will also keep temperatures lower. Saturday night looks like we'll still hang on to breezy conditions for southwestern Ontario. What's ahead? Truthfully, not a whole lot. Smooth sailing, clear conditions overnight, waking up to full-on sunshine for your Saturday. That carries through to the afternoon and the evening. Saturday night into Sunday, also clear. We've got sunshine on tap throughout your Sunday. It's when Monday the pattern will change just a bit. I'll show you that in the 5-day forecast. Overnight temperatures then down to 13 for Windsor. Also breezy conditions. A northeast wind here gusting to about 30 kilometers per hour. 23 the high for you tomorrow, and hanging on to those breezy conditions right through to Saturday into the overnight. Around the Golden Horseshoe, wow, we've got an 11 for Markham. Gusty winds out of the north, 40 kilometers per hour. They shift around to the east for tomorrow with a high of 24 in the city. A bit more cloud cover toward the north and east end. Okay, here we go. Next 5 days, and look at this. Sun, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, but just watch for those breezy conditions. And we're really locked into a temperature of about 24 late Monday into Tuesday. That's when our next batch of precipitation comes in. Not going to be a washout, but for several days, we're locked into sunshine and a temperature of about 24. Talia?
Looks good. Thanks, Jeff. It's been a thrilling sailing season for a unique group of sailors at the city's National Yacht Club. They're part of Able Sail Toronto, a program that launched this year to give those with physical disabilities the chance to experience the thrill of sailing on their own. Kelda Yoon went along for a ride.
Oh, I feel absolutely safe, absolutely tranquil. It's always been a refuge for me.
Jacqueline Chernecki has been sailing since she was 12. But there was a time when she thought she would never be able to do it again.
It's a full body workout once you get going.
Almost 20 years ago, a serious fall left her right arm and hand with limited mobility.
It becomes quite painful, and I can't feel my hand properly.
When she finally did get back on the water,
hope was reborn. Life came back.
And she wanted those like her to experience that same feelings.
That was awesome.
So she helped launch Able Sail Toronto. Among the program's 20 members is Linda Clark, an experienced sailor who was diagnosed with ALS 8 years ago. 2 years ago, she lost her ability to speak. She now uses this electronic device to communicate.
I had to find a way to sail again.
And you did. A rig with a harness lifts her into a boat specially designed for those with physical disabilities.
So this is an unsinkable, untippable sailboat.
An electronic control system adapted into the boat makes it easier for Clark to sail.
Without these boats, it would be much harder.
It would be almost impossible.
What do you love most when you're out on the water sailing?
The freedom it gives me, and I can leave the wheelchair behind.
Others feel the same.
When you have physical disability, it inevitably puts a lot of cannot in your life. I cannot do this, I cannot get in there, but sailing puts a lot of this beautiful cans. Like I can harness the wind, make it take me in the middle of the lake, fly on the water.
What is it like when you guys are together out on the water?
It's crazy.
2 car accidents left Candace Drescher in constant pain, and a botched knee surgery left Jay Allison, who has cerebral palsy, in a wheelchair. But when they're on the water,
you forget that you even have a disability, that you're even in a chair. Your life is the way it is because of your chair. You're out there and you just feel human, normal.
There's no greater feeling. And you know what? At that point, there's, no disability. We are totally enabled.
the sailing season wraps up at the end of the month. The program hopes even more people will join next year.
Everybody should be able to experience this.
You just have to make your own path and go through it the best way that you can. And
nice. That was refreshing.
That happens too.
That was refreshing.
So anything can happen at any moment, and it's just a lot of fun.
Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks for watching. I'll see you back here tomorrow at 6. We leave you with a look at the 5th annual Toronto Cider Festival happening at Sherbourne Common this weekend. It's the largest of its kind in Canada and runs until tomorrow night. Good night.